Hello. Let me just make sure that this is set up. So frustrating. So frustrating. Just setting up the thumbnail real quick here. And then we'll get started. Okay, I think that's good. LJ Cryer chipped out of the game. Redecto, hello. Yeah, so I'm going to do a live session here real quick. This is just very frustrating. Nasty work with that 4-guard lineup. Oh my god. That is true. We will get into some of the details of what happened in this game. Just setting some stuff up to, in preparation to discuss. Hello, Soham. Pot's not passing to Kristaps. Literally killed the game for us. It was a bad play. I know exactly what play you're talking about. Potts drives in. Kristaps is wide open at the top of the key, and Potts just kind of forces up a shot instead of passing to Porzingis there. And that was a bad play for sure. And that's the thing about Potts is that when he does something bad, it's something like, it's pretty obvious, It's very obvious that he's making a bad play. It's like, the play is right there. Make the simple play, and nobody will fault you for making that pass to an open Porzingis. Then if Porzingis decides to take an open shot, make or miss, we can live with that, right? What we can't live with is Potts being selfish and ignoring a teammate. But I'm not going to discredit his all-around play in this game over that one bad play. To say that they lost the game because of that play is, you're doing too much. But yeah, Potts, I would say two-way play, he was probably the best player on the floor for the Warriors tonight. Maybe you could argue GP2, although GP2 got beat on some plays against Jamal Murray, got into some foul trouble. But Potts ended up, he was very efficient once again. This is his fourth straight super efficient game. 14 shots, 8 of 14 from the field, 23 points, 5 of 8 from the three-point line. Hit a lot of big buckets there. The 9 straight points in that fourth quarter to keep the Warriors alive. Defensively, even, he was really good, taking charges and just being there positionally, getting steals, no turnovers. Pretty good all-around game from Potts. I don't really have, much complaints when it comes to Potts in this game. But, I'm deflated. Ultimately, I'm very deflated because, let me just announce this real quick. Okay, sorry about that. Let me catch up real quick. Okay, so let me get this started. First of all, just, this season's been really rough, needless to say, with all the injuries. And tonight, we were kind of going in a positive direction with the return of Quinton Post and Seth Curry. And so Quinton Post got very limited minutes to start. And then in that third quarter, in the second quarter, was it the third? Yeah, it was the second quarter where Porzingis took a seat. He was not having some good moments against Jokic defensively, so Quinton Post took over, and things started off really well for him defensively. He got 2 straight stops, including one against Jokic in the post. Watson delivered a pass to Jokic, and Quinton Post recovered and blocked a shot right at the rim, and then the Warriors got out in transition. So exceptional defensive play by Post right there. Unfortunately, on the offensive end, I think he got a little too excited. He wanted to make something happen offensively, and yeah, he was just a little too aggressive, and he ended up aggravating the foot injury that he'd been dealing with. I believe he's been dealing with an ankle sprain. So I don't know if it was a combination of a foot issue and an ankle issue, but it looked pretty bad coming off that, attack at the rim. Came up, limping, and he couldn't even stay up. He dropped to the floor because he was in so much pain. And so, based on, and Post has been trying to tough it out with this injury, and he's been trying to make himself available to the team. You can see the passion that he has for the game, trying to play through the pain of dealing with the foot issues. But this one was pretty notable, so I feel like he'll be missing, hopefully not the rest of the regular season, but I feel like he'll miss at least a week with that aggravation, because at this point, he's been trying to work his way back, playing through soreness, all these things. But now that he's really kind of re-injured it, I think they'll be more careful with him now. And that's really unfortunate because, the competition that's coming up, the Spurs, the Lakers, the Rockets. Who else is coming up? Warriors schedule. I know the Kings are baked in there somewhere, but Cavaliers, yeah. So it's the Spurs, Cavaliers, and then they play the Rockets, and then the Kings, and then the Lakers. And you're kind of hoping that Steph Curry will be available before they get into that Lakers game. But I felt a lot more hopeful going into these games against the Spurs and the Rockets and the Cavaliers, as long as they had Quinton Post, coming off the bench. You got Kristaps, you got Draymond, you got Santos. You need one more guy, man. You need one more guy that can anchor the defense, and that is Quinton Post. And he's not going to be available to them in these upcoming games. At least that's what I'm anticipating. And so there's not going to be enough defense there for the Warriors to be able to beat some of the more elite teams that are coming up. Or, you at least want to see them compete. And I think they would have stayed more competitive if Post was available in the second half. And unfortunately, he wasn't. And, this game was relatively close, but things got away from them in that fourth quarter. There's a lot of ref manipulation. Just a lot of bad calls, man. Again, national television, the refs, without fail, in the second half, third quarter, they're just calling everything in favor of the Nuggets, and the Warriors end up giving out 40 points in that third quarter. It's just a couple of really notable calls, and they were called in succession. There was a play where Potts was boxing out Tim Hardaway Jr., and Tim Hardaway Jr. ended up getting the offensive rebound, but the foul happened on the rebound. Potts ended up, I guess you can call it a foul, on Tim Hardaway Jr. That's a foul right there, and, well, that's side out of bounds. That's not, he got fouled, and then he went back up, taking a shot, and the ref called an and one on it. The Potts didn't foul Tim Hardaway Jr. on that shot. He fouled him on the rebound. So that's not a foul on the shot, but they gave Tim Hardaway Jr. a continuation. Do you know how hard it is these days to get a continuation? The refs often call, the shot happened before the guy went up, right? Even if he stopped his dribble and he's on his way up, if the foul happens before the guy actually goes up after his dribble, they'll still say that's out of that's still side out of bounds. They won't give the and one for that play. And yet they gave Tim Hardaway Jr. an and one call after he got the rebound on the foul, and then he went back up where he wasn't getting fouled. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? So that's the kind of call where it's like that's a momentum killer for the Warriors. That didn't have to be 2 points for the for the Nuggets. That could have just been that could have just been a replay. Just play the defensive possession over. But when the refs reward the other team like this, that's the Warriors are already shorthanded. That's just a distinct and clear disadvantage against the Warriors. It's really disgusting. And then on the following play, Guy Santos is attacking what's his name, Christian Brown, inside the paint, and he muscles his way through, and he does the same move that he does every single time, which is he hop steps into a gather, right? He hop steps. That hop step is where he plants both feet together. That's one step. So he took that one step with the gather, and then he took one more step back, and he made the shot, and it should have been and one because there was contact on the play. That should have been a 3-point play for the Warriors, and the ref called it a travel instead on Guy Santos. Another complete and utter BS call. So that's 2 straight plays where the Warriors get screwed for an and one when it should have been a do-over. And then on the following play, they call a travel on what should have been an and one play for the Warriors. So that's really just vile, disgusting. How many points did the refs just manipulate? That's 6 points that the refs just manipulated right there, right? I just, when you give the other team that kind of advantage, ultimately it was just a little bit too much to overcome. And, before you know it, the Warriors ended up with a 9-point deficit towards the end of that third quarter as a result, right? And then yeah, to end the quarter, Santos is a little late on the recovery to, I believe it was Strother who hit the corner 3. He was trying to help on the Jokic. Draymond was guarding Jokic, and Santos was kind of doubling him there. And then, yeah, it was a little too late on the Strother shot. And next thing you know, the Warriors have a 12-point deficit going into the fourth quarter. So there you go, man. It's a lot, and that's only 2 that I mentioned, where it's like the refs manipulated a bunch of calls against the Warriors, right? It happens every single nationally televised game without fail, with or without Steph Curry. I thought it would just be with Steph Curry, right? They're just trying to screw Steph Curry and the Warriors as much as humanly possible. The league hates the Warriors. This entire freaking decade, the 2020s, man. And so they did it again to ensure that the Warriors would have a disadvantage here. And that doesn't need to happen. You can let the Nuggets, be, although it was a close game, and the Warriors, in the first half they had a pretty decent lead. But yeah, that really, it just sucks to see the Warriors being screwed over by the refs. It's like it's bad enough that they're going through all these injuries, and then they have to go through this on top of that. It's just gross, man. It's just disgusting. And there was another play where it's blatantly out of bounds on the Nuggets, and the refs are like, "Oh, we don't know who we're gonna jump it up." Like, the ball went off of Peyton Watson. It's just clear as day, right? So the Warriors have to burn a challenge there, right? And obviously, they win the challenge because it was so clearly out of bounds on Peyton Watson. Like, just vile stuff from the refs. I'm not surprised, but it's just gross, man. It's to watch them get screwed out of the game like that. It's just, yeah, it's not cool. But having said that, the Quinton Post injury is just, it ruins the energy. You see guys come back, and you're just like, okay, Quinton Post is back, Seth Curry is back. Now all they need is Steph Curry and Al Horford, and then they'll be, we're trying to watch this team peak at the right time, but that just keeps getting delayed, and now you just don't even know. But you know what? At the end of the day, if Al Horford and Steph Curry could at least come back, because when Horford is in rotation, Quinton Post is usually out of the rotation, right? So still need those two back at the end of the day. It's just rough, man. We just went through this horrific injury for Moses Moody, who had a successful surgery, by the way. Good for him. The surgery was not complicated because it was a very clear-cut injury. It wasn't, overly complicated. So you keep your prayers up that, he'll be able to resume his career once he's able to go through this grueling time of having to, rehab. It's a long road ahead of him. So to watch Quinton Post go down like that, it just sucks, man. You don't want to see these things happen to the players. So prayers to him, and pray that this won't be like a super relevant 2 to 3 week injury or something like this. Hopefully he can recover in about a week's time. But yeah, I mean, being shorthanded like that, and we have a lot to discuss when it comes to some of the starters in this game. Before I do that, let me just go through some of your comments real quick, chat. Pods haters might be the stupidest people in the NBA. Listen, I understand that sentiment, and Pods recently kind of, not exactly an apology, but he kind of, he's like, I would take back some of the things that I said. He said it feels like it's been misconstrued a little bit, out of context and stuff like this. But at the end of the day, he said a lot of wild things over the years. As a rookie, he was talking about how the veterans can learn from him. He said that in his rookie year. So from the jump, the guy was a little bit delusional. You're telling me that Steph Curry, Draymond, all these veterans, all these incredible champions, historical players, are gonna learn from you? You're a rookie, and they're gonna learn from you. I just, from the moment he joined this team, Potts has been saying questionable things, and talking about, obviously he wants to be better than Steph Curry. That, oh, I can't wait to take the keys from Steph Curry and be the leading future of this team. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, who taught you how to handle the media? Like, clearly nobody, because you don't say these things. You are a rookie. You are a young player. You're trying to fit into a championship caliber situation. What you say is that you're playing for the team. You'll worry about the future when the future gets here. And you have a lot of aspirations as an NBA player. But right now, all I care about is trying to help this team win. I want to be a part of a winning situation. I want to help this team win as much as possible. These are the things that you want to say. You don't want to be saying to the media that you want to be better than Steph Curry and you're the future of this. Like, what are you doing, right? So he brought that hate upon himself, and then he throws up all these stinkers, does all these obviously terrible things on the floor, right? And you're doing these things and you're comparing yourself to Steph Curry, right? You brought it upon yourself if you're Pods. And so I think even he has come to the realization of that, right? That's where a lot of the vitriol and hate from the fan base is coming from. And so it's on him to match the level that he wants to be at, right? Especially with a bunch of bodies out. And there's another thing that I really didn't like what he said recently, where they're asking him about the injuries and all these things, and the guy's calling it a blessing in disguise because he gets to play more. And it's just like, don't say that. The Warriors have been decimated by these horrific injuries. That's terrible. Say that you feel terrible for your teammates and you're going to do whatever you can to hold up while they're missing. That's what you're supposed to say. You don't call injuries to your teammates a blessing in disguise, man. Are you an idiot? Like, dude, he needs to get some serious media training. Like, have some freaking common sense, man. Like, talk on behalf of your teammates. Talk on behalf of your teammates. Support your teammates first and foremost. That's what you're supposed to do. If you want to be the future and the leader and whatever, all these things, then show leadership qualities. Get over yourself. Stop talking about yourself. Stop stealing rebounds from your teammates. Stop looking off wide open teammates, all these things, right? Now, having said that, he's had 4 straight games where he's shown a lot of improved play. He's been efficient. He's been the true shooting has been really good compared to what he's been doing in terms of an like overall picture. Not been very good, but the last 4 games he's shown signs. He's shown encouraging signs. Let's look at his last 4 games, right? When he does good things, I'm not gonna just ignore it and pretend that they're not happening just because there's some dislike for Pods. You know what I mean? When he produces and plays well, then we have to acknowledge that, right? And well, against the Mavs, overtime win, 8 of 15, 2 of 6 from the 3, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 turnovers. I mean, that's a pretty damn good game, right? And then against the Nets, he used 6 of 11, 2 of 4 from the 3-point line, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. He's gotten really good at getting himself to the free throw line. He knows how to draw fouls, now knows how to draw contact, right? So that's an improvement in his game. And yeah, 22 points on 11 shots, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, and then the last game against the Wizards. Now, granted, these are against, teams that are either struggling or tanking. But at the end of the day, the Warriors are shorthanded. They're a bottom-feeding team as well when Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, all these guys are out, Al Horford. And so still, when the game is close and you're in clutch situations and all that, you still need the guys to perform, right? And Potts has definitely been one of the guys who's been performing. Last game again against the Wizards, 22 points on 13 shots, 7 of 8 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. I mean, that's pretty good production. And tonight also, he did some good things, right? So gotta give credit where credit is due. My ultimate. And then try to still kind of look at the pros and cons and determine his viability for the Warriors in a play-in playoff scenario situation, right? Where you're facing off against more elite players and more elite defense, right? What happens when the defense tightens up? And we've seen that. And so this is where you're just like, okay, well, I'm glad he's doing good things and helping the team during the regular season, getting his opportunities while Steph Curry's out and all these things, right? You give him credit for those situations and moments, but at the same time, what's it going to look like against the elite teams? Even in a bench role, which he will be, he better be, right? Come play in playoffs. But yeah, for me, I remain concerned about Steve Kerr's obsession with him. I remain concerned that he's going to get too much of a role. And I remain concerned that against pressuring defense, his dribbling is not good enough. His handles is not good enough. And certainly, I do not want to see the ball in his hands, with the shot clock running out or, at the end of the quarter or something like this. We don't want to see this because, like, if there's any kind of double or something, he doesn't see things quickly enough, right? I think that happened to end the second quarter. He just kind of held the ball for a long time until, the shot clock is close to running out and there's not enough time to execute. And then he dishes the ball off too late, right? And then the Warriors don't get a good shot off as a result. So these are the things that we don't want to see. DeAnthony Melton, man. DeAnthony Melton, oh my gosh. I've been very disappointed with Melton and his inconsistencies in the starting lineup. Once again, tonight was the worst. 0 points, 0 for 5 from the field, 2 turnovers, 3 assists, minus 29 in 25 minutes. Holy crap. Nobody else on the team was a minus 20. This guy was a minus 29. I mean, he did nothing out there. Can't stop anybody, can't score. I don't understand this complete inconsistency. What the hell is going on? I don't understand. He's supposed to be one of the best players while Steph Curry's out, and this is just This is very disappointing. Very disappointing performance. If he played better throughout the course of this game, because this game was really close throughout the first three quarters, and then it got away from that. It got away from them in the fourth quarter and late in the fourth quarter. They stayed within distance in that fourth quarter even, but yeah, a couple of bad possessions. The Nuggets hit a couple of threes, and next thing you know, it's a 16-point deficit. And yes, it very quickly got away from them. But it was very close. And I think it would have been much closer if D'Anthony Melton simply played a half-decent game and just not a complete and utter no-show. So I don't know what the deal is with this. At the end of the day, we know that D'Anthony Melton is a secondary option next to Steph Curry in open space. He should be a lot better, but his three-point shooting has been it's just disappeared. Where has his three-point shooting gone? We'll look at the month of March, and he's shooting 26% from the three-point line in the month of March. That's disgusting, right? You can't have that. You're shooting 5 threes per game, and you're shooting 26%, and he's shooting 40% from the field. 40% from the field, 26% from the three-point line. What? That's disgusting, man. Right? So he's shooting almost 14 shots, and he's scoring 14 points per game. That is comically inefficient. Yeah, and he's just done a lot of no-shows. Look at against the Mavericks overtime game, 0 for 6, 7 turnovers. Something is wrong with this dude. This is not right. Is his knee acting up? Is he not moving right? He's getting blown by. He's not able to blow by others. And then this guy's talking about he wants to be rewarded in the off season. You haven't shown enough to be rewarded the amount that you want to get paid. So that's a tough one. But again, bottom line for Melton is that he's a secondary player, secondary playmaker. And ultimately, he needs to be one of the better POAs for the team, right? That is his role ultimately next to Steph Curry. So we need to see what he looks like next to Steph Curry before judging him for what he looks like without Steph Curry. But he's getting outplayed by Pods pretty badly, production-wise. So that's not good. Let's just put it that way. That's not good. But when crap hits the fan, right? And again, you're playing against elite competition. Who are you going to? You need to shorten your rotations. You can't be playing 4 or 5 guards at the same time, right? So you need to shorten your rotation. Who is going to make it? It's going to be Melton or is it going to be Pods, right? And my inclination still is that it is going to be Melton. Melton is going to end up playing better, is what I'm saying. We'll see about that. Very disappointing game from Melton tonight. He just completed another no-show. Again, let me take a quick look at your comments, thoughts on Pods. Brando basketball already covered. Pods defenders aren't that much smarter either. Let's be honest, Melton looking like 2024 Clay. Covered, Melton is just forcing the issues with selfish basketball. True. It's because he's trying to earn a payday more so than like playing the right way, right? He's just trying to put up numbers. Guys like this is very, when they do that, is disappointing to me. You're using the Warriors to get paid, regardless of some of the bad things that you're doing. All you care about is putting up points, at the end of the day. That's what you're trying to do. And you want to get paid a lot for doing that. And, well, my sense is that if that's what he wants, the Warriors are not going to be able to keep him. The most likelihood of what's going to happen is that they're going to end up paying Pods, because you know what the Warriors front office do, right? And they're going to let go of Melton. That's what I think is going to happen. Unless things change in the play-in and the playoffs, right? We have to see how things play out and what these pieces look like, assuming Steph Curry comes back next to Steph Curry, and what level do they reach? And how well do these players play? Even for Kristaps Porzingis, they're talking about like, oh, he's enamored with this team and they want to sign him and blah, 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 right? But what's he going to look like against elite competition? Is he going to be reliable? Is he going to hold up? Is his defense going to be good enough? You have to look for these things. And right now, based on what I've seen, I don't think that his defense is going to be good enough. In this game, his defense was all over the map. It was all over the map. There's a lot more bad defensive possessions than good defensive possessions. Now, he makes up for it on the offensive end, right? When he's hitting efficient shots, when he's hitting big time 3-point shots. Tonight, he was very efficient. And that's one of the things about Porzingis. Uh, in his first several games is that he's been inefficient. He's been shooting 40% from the field and 26% from the 3-point line, exactly the same as D'Anthony Melton, actually. But in the last 2 games, he's been really good. But he's also played against defenseless teams in the last 2 games, right? Part of the reason why the Warriors were holding up against the Nuggets were because they were getting a lot of easy buckets in the early going. That's why the Warriors took a double-digit lead in the early going. They had no interior defense, right? Jokic is no defense in the paint. GP2 is getting whatever he wanted. He's 7 of 8 from the field inside the paint, right? Actually, I think he made a 3-pointer as well. But Porzingis, the last 2 games, 9 of 17 against the Wizards, 5 of 11 from the 3-point line. So that was pretty good. And then tonight, he was 8 of 14 from the field, 5 of 5 from the 3-point line. He did not miss from the 3-point. I guess he's starting to feel more comfortable out there. So, very efficient offensive game, but defensively, there's just a lot left to be desired. He played 29 minutes, grabbed 3 rebounds. He's a bad rebounder. He's just a stick out there. It's just kind of easy to move him, which is why he gets fouled so much. All right, his players touch him, and he's just like flying all over the place. And defensively, yeah, he dropped coverages a lot. He's late when it comes to helping as the anchor of the team. So it hurts your soul to watch Steve Kerr put out a lineup of Pat Spencer, Seth Curry, Pods, GP2, and KP, right? And then he replaced GP2 with Nate Williams. So a little bit bigger there, but you're dealing with this tiny 3-guard lineup. Seth Curry 6'1", Pat Spencer 6'2", Pod 6'4". It's not enough defense there. Transition, if the Warriors miss a shot, like in that lineup, let's say, for example, Kristaps Porzingis is forcing his way to the rim. Nothing is called. He misses. He's on the floor. And all of a sudden, you have these tiny midgets coming back in transition against these giants. And you know that that's going to be a bucket for the other team every time. You can't formulate lineups where you're cooked on defense in transition by having lineups like that out there, right? You have to choose between, some of the guards. If you want to play Seth Curry, get Pat Spencer out of there. You don't need to play them at the same time while Potts is also out there to play some 3-guard lineup. This is the garbage that Steve Kerr has been doing forever. This is what he was doing earlier in the season. You're playing Buddy Hield in a 4-guard lineup, and you're benching Guy Santos, and you have no power forward out there. You got GP2 masquerading as a power forward. Your defense is destroyed, right? And he just continues to do these insane things like Leon's is right there. Get him in rotation. Why are you playing a 4-guard lineup? You should be playing Potts or Spencer, right, at point. Get Seth Curry in there for the shooting. Get Nate Williams at small forward. Get Leon's at power forward next to Kristaps Porzingis. Why are you running a tiny 4-guard lineup? That's where the Warriors started to lose all momentum. They had a lead, and then next thing you know, they're giving up all kinds of easy buckets in transition. They're not scoring on the other end. And they have like a 2-point lead. Next thing you know, they're at a 5-point deficit. That's late in that third quarter. That's where the game flipped, right? So there's more Steve Kerr BS. This is why Quinton Post getting injured really, that just took the fighting spirit, out of me. Because I knew that they would need him in this game. And in the upcoming games, right? And once they lost them, it's just like you knew that Kerr was going to go back to doing some BS. And that's exactly what we saw. All right, so it was rough. So depressing. They always ahead at first, always messed it up at the last quarter. So disgusting. Yeah. There's a combination of Steve Kerr's terrible lineup choices on top of the ref manipulations. You can't do anything about those refs screwing the Warriors. Like I just, we deserve to see like a game where that didn't happen. I'm sure the Nuggets would have probably found a way to beat the Warriors anyway. It's like, let them play it out, man. These refs they're getting in the way and they're trying to make things easier for the other team, right? To ensure that the Warriors suffer a loss, right? Tough to watch. Seth was terrible, not able to move without the ball and can't create his own shots. I mean, Seth got to play like barely 7 minutes in this game and he barely got the ball. And he's in 4-guard lineups where he's being asked to play small forward. Is he really being played? Was he in any way put in an optimized situation where he can actually play his role? No, I don't think so. So I'm not going to fault him for that. Seth is a vital piece for this team. If they can get into a 7-game series, they're going to need him, man. And they're not going to need him in a freaking 4-guard lineup. They need to have 2 guards on the floor and 3 forwards next to them. And Seth Curry, if he's one of them, then he's going to do damage. I would love to see a lineup where you have like, for a short stint, obviously not in the starting lineup, but, in a short stint, short burst or whatever, you got like Seth and Steph Curry on the floor at the same time in the backcourt. And then you got Guy Santos, Al Horford, Kristaps, Porzingis, something like that, right? How potent would a lineup like that be, right? Everybody can shoot. Very dangerous situation. The floor is spread out. A lot of space for Steph Curry to work with. A lot of space for Al Horford, Guy Santos, and Porzingis to work with. Right? Leave anybody open, and they're gonna kill you from the 3-point line. So these are the kinds of things that I would like to see. Right? But that's down the road talk. The Warriors lost this game because of the third quarter. Yeah. Melton and Pat needs to go. 10 seed it is. Kerr could have ran Malachi Leones in the third, but no. Exactly. These guys need to be in there for positional needs, right? Steve Kerr openly continues to disrespect positions in the NBA. It's vile, man. You're in these transition. You're in transition defense, and you got like Seth Curry as your last line of defense. Like, what the? And then you have like Pat Spencer as your last line of defense. And you got Pods as your last line of defense. Like, come on. What do you think is going to happen there? These are basketball crimes. America wins when Duke loses. Melton has been terrible. QP is not gonna lie, the first half of the game felt like a playoff game and loved it. Yeah, the first half was great when there was no interference from the refs. It was great. Yeah, imagine like rooting for the Warriors and you're just like crapping on a player like Quinton Post who plays so hard. He plays his heart out. He tries to play through injuries. And then you got whack people in the fan base talking about he's ass and just talking trash instead of appreciating his desire to try to help the Warriors. He does all the dirty work. If you hate the players that do the dirty work, like, you don't understand basketball. You care about fancy stuff, right? You care about athleticism and you care about dunks and like, come on, man. We need to get smarter as a fan base. You need to understand what is winning basketball and what is not winning basketball. Winning basketball is the guys that do the dirty stuff, all right? The guys who do the dirty stuff and do it successfully, especially a guy like Quinton Post who can play defense inside out, right? He contests everything. A 7-footer who's out at the 3-point line, guarding perimeter players, keeping guys in front of him, doing all these difficult things that a guy like Kristaps Porzingis cannot do, by the way. He cannot do it. If you can't do these things, that's where your defensive structure breaks. And these kinds of players are like, if you're relying on them to be a primary defender, good luck. You're screwed. You're going to lose. You're not going to be good enough because you're going to give up points too easily in the playoffs. You can't give up easy buckets in the playoffs, right? And how you know whether a player is going to be giving up easy points and be a failure on defense in the playoffs is you watch them in the regular season and watch how they play in the regular season and what is the consistency behind their defense. And if it's inconsistent in the regular season, believe you me, it'll be inconsistent in the playoffs, right? How good of a player you are in the playoffs is determined in that regular season. The consistency of that regular season is going to show what you'll be in the playoffs, okay, against the most elite competition. And I'm telling you right now, Quinton Post, if they get into a 7-game series, Quinton Post is going to be an impactful player. There's no way that Steve Kerr is going to DMP this guy. They'll need his defense. They'll need the size because they don't have enough perimeter defense. So they need to continue to play this funnel style where the perimeter defenders are, funneling their guys, the wing guys, to their centers. This is how the Warriors are playing defense this year. Their centers are everything for their defense. That is why you put Draymond at the center spot with these small guys around them. It's been failing them all season long, even when Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler were available. That's what happens when your center is not good enough. If your anchor is not good enough on defense, you will lose games no matter how good you are on offense. You need to understand this as an educated fan watching the game. You need to understand how the Warriors are winning or losing games, and that's predicated on the defense. What the anchors are doing on defense, okay? So this is why you need to understand the value of a player like Quinton Post and Guy Santos as well. This is part of the reason why I was fighting for him to be in rotation all damn season long, because he can fill a position at the power forward spot. He's multi-positional, small forward and power forward, which means he can guard 2 positions. That's very, very valuable when you can guard 2 positions, okay? So these kinds of players are needed. They're needed. Don't be a casual fan and be like, oh, Malachi Leons is trash. He's a G League player. That's what they were saying about Guy Santos. Look at him now. Okay? GP2 was a G League player, right? Before he came to the Warriors, found a role, and became a 2-way player. It's like you gotta value, man. You gotta understand what to value. What you value, what you need to value for the Warriors to be a real team is for their defensive structure to be set. In order for their defensive structure to be set, you need reliable defenders. Okay? The most reliable defenders on this team at the center spot are Al Horford and Quinton Post. Okay? And the guy just got freaking injured, again, trying to come back early to try to help the team, win this game. This really important game. They were on a 3-game winning streak, right? And he made a great defensive play on Jokic, but you don't value that, huh? And then the guy gets injured, and you're talking about he's trash. Like, please, be better. Goodness gracious, man. Guy's role once Jimmy comes back. I mean, that is just too far away to discuss. But long story short, it should be what it should have been to start the season, which is Guy Santos at power forward and Jimmy Butler at small forward. Not Jimmy Butler at power forward and Guy Santos out of the freaking rotation. Ridiculous, man. Porzingis was wide open right behind Pods, and then Pods breaks a shot. Yeah, that was a bad play. Okay. I want them to lose the play-in and be out, save Steph from more energy. I mean, you're going to have the entire off season if you, right? Like, what is the point? Steph Curry is 38 years old. Steph Curry's future moving forward as he turns 39 next season, how he's going to perform, is he going to continue to be good enough on defense? These things are not guaranteed. So I'm not going to take the season for granted. There's very little left on the season. If Steph Curry is healthy enough to come back and his knee is fine, because he gave it enough rest. I don't understand the point of sitting him. What is the point of that? We want to see them in a playoff situation. We want to see what Guy Santos looks like in a playoff situation with a bigger role next to Steph Curry. We want to see how Kristaps Porzingis gels next to Steph Curry in that kind of situation to see whether he's worth getting or not, worth keeping or not. We need to see what Al Horford in the starting lineup looks like next to Steph Curry because we haven't seen that pretty much all season long. And we saw that when Al Horford was starting with Steph Curry out of the equation, the Warriors were competing against every single team that they played, even against the Thunder, they competed with Al Horford in the starting lineup. Don't you want to see that? You don't want to see Al Horford next to Steph Curry in the starting lineup? And you don't want to see how Guy Santos works with more space created by a guy like Steph Curry? How much easier the game will become? Guy Santos is shooting like 50% from the field without Steph Curry. What's he going to shoot with Steph Curry? Right? When there's a pick and roll and two go to Steph Curry and Guy Santos is wide open, nobody's even guarding him. What is that going to look like for the Warriors? What is it going to look? What is going to look like when Steph Curry and Kristaps Porzingis is doing a pick and roll or a pick and pop? You don't want to see these things. You don't want to see Seth Curry and Steph Curry, that like the most ridiculous shooting of all time on the floor at the same time. And then you don't want to see GP2, like you find him cutting, it's an automatic bucket, right? So if the Warriors can get all these guys in order and find a, like an 8-man group of guys, eight-man rotation, obviously, Steve's going to add another guy in there, but you tell me you don't want to see this? Okay. That's fine. I want to see it. I'm not taking Steph Curry and where he is in his career, the fact that he's still an elite basketball player on both ends of the floor. I'm not taking that for granted. And if he can come back healthy, I want to see it. Yeah. That's what I've been fighting for. That's the reason I'm still paying attention to what's going on, because I haven't given up hope that Steph Curry and Al Horford are going to return. And when they do return, this team is going to reach another tier. We want to see this, right? Even in tonight's game, if Al Horford and Steph Curry was available, the game would have been completely different, So that's all I got to say about that. Okay, so now having said all that, Draymond was actually, he started off really good. The first quarter, he was really good. Got away with some stuff against Jokic, but for the most part, offensively and defensively, he was pretty good. Nothing really bad to say about Draymond. He was, he hit his threes, hit some layups, and I think he had 8 early points. Statistically, he wasn't bad. 13 points, 8 assists, 2 turnovers. The turnovers that he had were just of the atrocious kind. But 8 assists to 2 turnovers is pretty good for Draymond. But defensively, I feel like Draymond can still help the Warriors situationally. I think in the playoffs, they might be better off if he comes off the bench. I think that's the best way to go, because he's just such a liability offensively, especially in a playoff scenario. And defensively, he's gonna have to guard some of the most elite players, in the league. I think he can do it situationally. And he cannot be at the center spot. Steve Kerr has kind of gone back to doing that, especially with post out. But if they're in a 7-game scenario, that means everybody's healthy. And if everybody's healthy, Draymond should not be playing the center spot whatsoever, right? So that's the thing that we need to continue to look for Steve Kerr to avoid down the line. We need to hope that he learns lessons from these games in the regular season. And when everybody's back and healthy, like Pat Spencer cannot be in rotation. Pat Spencer has some good moments, especially in the first half. And, they played well, Potts and Pat Spencer combination. At some point, they were bound to play well, but most of the time they're terrible together. And especially because usually they're when these two guys are sharing the floor, there's 3 guards on the floor at the same time. There's another guard next to these 2 guards, right? And what pisses me off about Pat Spencer is that, like, tonight, for example, in the first half, he played pretty good defense, right? I saw him like really contesting a shot by like Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr. jumps out of the gym to shoot his threes, right? And Pat Spencer was doing a really nice job of contesting. And what that shows me is that Pat Spencer is a selective defender, right? And that is completely unacceptable. Why are you selectively playing defense? There are some games where he's just a complete and utter no-show. He just lets guys blow by him. Like, you know, the guy played lacrosse. Like, you would think that he would have a dog in him defensively, right? And he doesn't. He just doesn't. Tonight he was randomly good, but on most nights he's awful on defense, right? And so, if you want to be an elite team, right? If you want elite players in rotation, you can't have guys that are cone on defense, right? And Pat Spencer tends to be a cone on defense. That's what. If you're a cone on defense, you will lose me, no matter what position you play, right? That's the way it goes. You need elite defenders in rotation to be a championship quality team, right? Playoff quality team, whatever you want to call it. You're not going to be if you have a guy in rotation that gives up easy buckets. Okay? That's rule number 1. That is basic basketball 101. You can't have cones in your rotation if you want to be an elite team. Unless that cone is the most elite kind of offensive player, right? That's where you make an exception. Jokic, Luka, these guys can be very vulnerable defensively, right? But because they're so elite, you know, on offense, you're willing to live with that, right? You have to live with that. And so you build a defense around these guys, you know what I mean? But with a guy like Pat Spencer, like, what? Just sit him. Just sit him. LJ Cryer is better than him. Seth Curry is better than him. Pods, you know, at this point, Pods is better than him. So DeAnthony Melton, there's like a world of guards that are better than Pat Spencer. It's like, don't play him. You got to sit some guards. You can't play all of them, right? Crazy. Fire Kerr and trade Pods for Giannis. Dre is always looking to pass. At least Jokic shoots and is a threat to score. He is a selective defender. Team played fine. Role players did their job. But without stars versus elite teams on the road, it's cooked. Realistic expectations. I mean, it's tough because without his stars, the Warriors still have won games against really good teams, right? They beat the Nuggets before at home convincingly without a star. You know, with Al Horford playing great defense. Actually, I think Al Horford scored 20 plus points in that game. He was on fire from the 3-point line. And Guy Santos played really well. I think DeAnthony Melton played pretty well too. So I don't know what the hell happened to DeAnthony Melton, man. Like, was Peyton Watson guarding him? I don't remember, but if that's the case, maybe that explains. Peyton Watson is a really good defender. He has like a 7'1" wingspan, really great athlete, two-way player. So yeah, I mean, a guy like that he changes their defense a little bit for sure. But yeah, I think again, if they had Al Horford in this game, would have been a completely different game. Completely different. Al Horford, I think he's due to miss another week. He cannot come back soon enough. I am really hoping that really praying that calf injury is, they're just making sure that he's getting to 100% from that, and it's not like he still can't really move because it's a bad injury or something like this. You know what I mean? I don't think it was a serious calf strain, so they need him. They need him to have any shot. Like, if Steph Curry comes back and Al Horford is not available to them, that really limits their potential in any 7-game series. Like I said, it's Steph Curry carrying the offense with enough two-way players behind him, but especially defensively. If he has defense behind him, right? That's when the Warriors are serious. And a lot of that hinges on the availability of both Al Horford and Quinton Post, but especially Horford, right? So yeah, a lot hangs in the balance of how good Horford is when he comes back, right? So we'll see about that. Spirit in the locker room is probably down. They're all thinking Cancun already. I don't know about that, but yeah, when you keep seeing bodies go down after coming back, literally the same thing happened to Post as what happened to Moody in terms of he literally just came back from injury, and then he ended up getting injured again. Obviously, with Moody, it was a lot more devastating. But for Post, he just came back, and now he's out again. So it's the last thing we want to see. It's really awful to see. Dub season has been a curse with injuries for sure. We're missing 150 million worth of talent. The Warriors games are perpetual underdog stories. Well, that's the thing. Is sure, you can say that, but if the correct lineups are being used, if guys are put in correct positions, and if their defense is holding up, they've shown that they've been good enough to compete against any team, and again, be able to beat some of those teams, right? That's all I want to see. I want to see guys put in the right positions so that the Warriors can play defense correctly. And when they play defense correctly, because they have the proper pieces, they're competitive at the highest level, right? We want to see good process at the end of the day from the coaching staff, Steve Kerr, right? Because that's what they need in order to compete for the remainder of whatever's left, okay? So that continues to be my fight, right? Are you doing the right things to maximize this team regardless of what they're missing, whether they're good enough or not? Are you maximizing their potential with what's available to the team? In tonight's case, no. Again, you have Malachi Leons you can put at power forward when both Draymond and Santos are out at the same time. Shouldn't be doing that. But if you're going to do that, you have a 6'9" guy with a 7-foot wingspan right there, 7'1" wingspan right there. Why are you putting Nate Williams out of position at the power forward spot? He's not a power forward. He hasn't shown that he's a power forward. He's a POA. He's a great athlete who plays really good POA. 6'5", 7'2" wingspan. It's like putting Peyton Watson at power forward. What are you doing? It's because Steve Kerr for you. You put Peyton Watson at power forward. You don't do that, right? Same thing with Nate Williams. You don't need to do that. You have Malachi Leons right there, right? Malachi Leons at power forward, Nate Williams at small forward, Seth Curry as shooting guard. Pick between Potts and Pat Spencer. They don't need to be on the floor at the same time to be in a ridiculous 4-guard lineup. That is not maximization. That is minimization. That is handicapping. Right? Do you want to see your players go to battle, right? Every game is an event, right? Every game is an event. These players, they prepare endlessly for this one single game, right? Where thousands of fans show up to watch this game happen for these elite basketball players, okay? Star players or not, put them in maximized position to be able to compete at the highest level that they can. You're not doing that in a 4-guard lineup. So that's not cool. You see what I'm saying? I hope you understand the point that I'm trying to make here. Nice night for KP. 5 for 5 on threes, yes. But again, his defense is concerning to me. He's very inconsistent defensively. Sometimes he's there, a lot of times he's not. And so I kind of, it's a tough one. Maybe it's a little easier to stomach when he has another viable big next to him. If Al Horford was next to him, I think things would look a little bit better because he does make up for it on offense, right? He's capable in that regard. And so he does have value, but you don't want him as a primary anchor with not enough defenders on the floor at the same time. So if you have 4 guards on the floor at the same time with Porzingis trying to anchor, you're doomed. You're putting out a lineup that is doomed to fail, right? And that's simple scouting. If you can see that the guy is inconsistent on defense, you want to put more defenders around him, not a 4-guard lineup around him. Now you have less defense. Now you're not protecting him. Now you're making everybody look bad. You're making Nate Williams look bad when he has limited opportunity. He only has 4 games left in the season. Whatever, the Warriors have, 8 games left or something like that? Nate Williams can only play in 4 more of them because of the contract that he has, right? It's not a guaranteed contract. I think they need to sign him, but they're probably going to end up signing LJ Cryer, and they're going to have too many guards. But Nate Williams is trying to play for a contract and a guaranteed spot for this team, and you're putting him at power forward. You see how Steve Kerr, hurts this guy's career, right? You make him look bad in this stupid small lineup with no defense, right? And then he's going to end up, being a part of the negative as a result of that in the limited minutes that he's getting. That's not cool, right? You make Seth Curry look bad. You put him at small forward. The guy's 6'1". You put him at small forward? Kind of disgusting work are we doing here, right? Whether you put Pat Spencer, any of Pat Spencer, Seth Curry, or Pot at the small forward spot, you're committing crimes, right? You're making everybody look bad on the floor. This is the stuff that he was doing in the earlier part of the regular season. You put Jimmy Butler at power forward. You put Draymond at a center. And you put 3 freaking guards around them, and then your defense is screwed. And then you're losing games that you're supposed to be winning. It's the story of this entire damn season. That's the story of the last 3 seasons, right? So if that doesn't boil your blood when you see these things happen, excuse me, and you're excusing it in the name of they don't have enough talent, that's bad evaluation, man. Think about what you're saying. The players are being put in position to fail. You got to think about that before talking about they're not good enough. Don't give Kerr a mediocre roster. Even when you give him a great roster, he'll find a way to put out a bad lineup. Right? You DMP Guy Santos for a quarter of the season. Think about how awful that is. Even without his two-way play, his scoring and all these things, just the very fact that he can cover the power forward position, right, and he can work in open space, that should have been good enough to get him in rotation. And they didn't do that because Steve Kerr wanted to play Buddy Hield instead. Buddy Hield, who can't get a single rotational minute for the Hawks, was starting for the Warriors, indispensable. He's closing it. F you, Steve Kerr. F you, man. Guy Santos tonight was not great. He's had 3 just incredible games, 2 straight games where he scored almost 30 points. He was setting a different, standard and bar for himself. But in this game, again, he got really screwed over on that play in that third quarter. Amazing move, and one play gets wiped out with a travel call. So, yeah, he ends up with 4 turnovers in this game. 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 turnovers, 3 of 9 from the field. Very inefficient. There's a corner 3-point shot that he could have hit late in the second quarter that could have given the Warriors a double-digit lead. Couldn't hit that one. Santos has to work on being a super hyper efficient and consistent 3-point shooter to reach the next level next season. He's shown signs of it this season. But at the end of the day, he's shooting let's see what he shot in the month of March. 31.6%. That's not good enough. That is below average. He's shooting 48% from the from the field, which is excellent. The month before that, he was shooting amazing. He shot 57% from the field and 41% from the 3-point line in the month of February. So he fell off a lot since then. And that's the thing, is that you need consistency, right? He's getting very, very close in terms of just being able to kind of do everything on the floor. He's able to play point for this team at times. He's able to run offense. He's able to isolate, create offense for himself, create offense for his teammates. A very cerebral player. Um, I think he's pretty strong right now. He's stronger than he was last season. He needs to get even stronger. He just needs to reach like the next, like he needs to build up like he needs to build up like a Giannis at his peak kind of body. You know, he needs to get to like Aaron Gordon level strong, right? Because he's being tasked with being responsible playing that power forward position, right? His natural position is small forward. Actually, his natural position is point guard, but in the NBA, he's a small forward and he can play power forward, and he does a pretty good job, right? But if he got stronger, he would be super elite, right? So he needs to get stronger, even offensively, right? If he's stronger, then he can protect the ball better. Sometimes he has games where he has too many turnovers, right? Excuse me, I'm still having throat issues. I've been dealing with this for like over a month now. I feel like it's just a point of concern. Like I need this to make this, you know. So excuse me. So yeah, there's a few things that Santos needs to clean up, and it's not going to happen this season. You just hope that with more space available to them to the team, with Steph Curry returning, he'll be more consistent when he's open for these 3-point shots. And yes, on these 3-point shots that he's been taking, because he's getting more attention, right? He's not just getting wide open looks. He's often shooting with a recovering defender, sometimes with a hand in his face, right? So the game will become easier when Steph Curry is the creator and Guy Santos is the secondary guy, right? So, but tonight they needed him to be better for them to be more competitive. He got a couple of shots blocked at the rim. He's pretty good on defense for the most part, but overall not consistent enough in this game. Yeah, so there's that. And GP2 continues to be, I mean, this guy's insane. 7 to 8 from the field, 5 rebounds and 21. He was in foul trouble in this game. They called some ticky-tacky stuff that they would never call on Steph Curry, right? They called one. His fourth foul was like he was like top blocking Jamal Murray for like a split second, and the ref called that a foul, right? Imagine if the refs called that for Steph Curry, like off-ball fouls, like the teams wouldn't be able to guard him if they were making calls like that, right? But disgusting, man. The ref work is just so vile. But GP2 has just been absolutely incredible, man. If the Warriors can please get healthy, and GP2 is, playing not power forward, but if he's at shooting guard or, sometimes small forward, and they can get away with that. Offensively, he's just so dominant. The timing of everything he does is just so elite, right? His role is just so picture perfect that anytime you deliver a pass to him anywhere near the rim, it's instantly going up for a layup or a dunk, right? And the reaction time it's out of this world. It's incredible. So not enough appreciation goes to GP2. Actually, people have been slandering him over recent years because he's been put at power forward, right? And he can't guard power forwards. He can't box out power forwards, and he can't rebound over them. He's 6'2". Just because he's elite at finishing around the rim, it doesn't mean that he can do those same things defensively, right? And so now he's being put more into his natural role, which is like, screen and dive and finish around the rim and play POA defense. And, that's what he was doing in this game. He was largely guarding Jamal Murray. I don't think that his defense was what it was in that 21-22 season. He was like out of this world. He was a cheat code that season defensively. He could just lock anyone and everyone down. It was insane. The dude is 6'2". He felt like 6'4". Like he felt like he had like these Popeye arms, and he was just jacked that year. And then you had this organized defense of Mike Brown behind it, right? So everybody's positioning was just so elite, and there were more elite one-on-one defenders of Andrew Wiggins, right? You combine the elite defense of Andrew Wiggins and you put GP2 with that, and it's just like, wow, right? Everybody's defense was just so immaculate that year. Unfortunately, we don't have that anymore. We have, just constant help defense, constant, like, the guards are off the hook. You know what I mean? The guards are not given enough responsibilities to, like, keep their men in front of them. They're always being allowed to get burned to some extent, right? Because you play this funnel defense and, the guards are like, well, I'm sending him to there anyway. But the really good defenders will stay connected, because when you stay connected, even if you allow the guy to go this way, if you stay connected to them enough, that allows the defense to recover, allows more time for the defense to recover. If you get burned, then the defense cannot recover on, when your guard is getting burned, there's not enough time to recover. Pretty simple, right? So, there's a lot of things that are off with this team in ways, but they have enough bodies and they have enough role players and they have enough guys that are two-way for them to compete against any team if they can just get healthy, right? I'm still just looking for that. I'm just praying for Steph Curry and Al Horford to come back, and then you got, even with Quinton Post out, just look at the names that I'm gonna mention, okay? Steph Curry. I do this often, but Steph Curry, Al Horford, Guy Santos, Kristaps Porzingis, even just situationally, Draymond Green, GP2, DeAnthony Melton, who will play much better basketball as a secondary player. You got Pods, who's improved, right? And hopefully Quinton Post, Seth Curry. I mean, these are really viable names that I'm mentioning to you. Nate Williams. Was Will Richard a DMP in this game? Does anybody know? Was he out with an injury or illness, or was he just a DMP? Because it says DMP. I wonder. But I do think that they have enough guards where Will Richard shouldn't be in rotation in the playoffs. I know a lot of you are like, playoffs, but we know that they're a guaranteed play-in team. If Steph Curry can come back on time, I think it's going to be hard for them to try to fight for the 8th seed at this point, just because they lost this game. I think this was probably the most winnable game out of the next 3 games. Although Cavaliers, I wouldn't rule it out. But I feel like this was a winnable game if a couple more guys showed up, if Quinton Post didn't get injured. Unfortunately, it's a bunch of ifs. But based on the names that I gave you, they have enough to compete against any team. I believe in Steph Curry that much. You give him enough defenders, and he can win you a series. Last season against the Rockets, Steve Kerr did not give Steph Curry enough defense, and he still beat that team, a second-seeded team. Okay? And granted, you can say, well, they still had Jimmy Butler, but, like, there's no defense. You play a tiny lineup against a giant team. Steven Adams is going to town, right? He's dominating the Warriors. And you got, like, Buddy Hield, Potts, and Steph Curry coming, 3-guard lineup with no defense. And Steph Curry still carried them to a victory in the first round against that team, right? And you saw what Steph Curry was able to do against the Spurs. Probably not going to end up facing the Spurs, but you saw what he did against, even against OKC. I don't think there's anybody on OKC that can stop Steph Curry. So we know that no team can stop Steph Curry, right? It's a matter of what is the defense behind Steph Curry. It's Steph Curry and defense. And I believe that they have enough to be able to beat any team should they get into the playoffs. So you can call it a long shot if you want, but a long shot is better than no shot. And as long as that hope is there, that's what I'm going to cling to. This is the, I guess, faith and loyalty that I have in Steph Curry's capabilities. Obviously another thing that they have to overcome is Steve Kerr and his idiocy, right? There's always a lot to overcome for Steph Curry. The refs, the NBA, Steve Kerr and his stupid lineups, the limitations of his teammates to an extent, but I think they have enough. We'll see about that. Will Richard and Nate Williams are similar in positions. Well, Will Richard is 6'3" with a 6'9" wingspan. Nate Williams is 6'5" with a 7'2" wingspan. That's the difference. And Nate Williams is like 220 pounds. Will Richard is like 195, 200, right? So Nate Williams has more versatility as a defender. He has more strength, more wingspan, more room to cover defenders, better POA. So I think Nate Williams is just, I think they need him more. They need his attributes more than Will Richard. And not at power forward, for crying out loud. Ideally, you have Nate Williams at shooting guard. Okay? You can play him at small forward in a pinch. He's capable. He has the size for it, and the wingspan. But ideally, you have him at shooting guard. Stuff is like a Porsche with a check light engine on. Porzingis has no D and can't rebound. It is a problem. That is why he needs a legitimate. That's why he needs Al Horford next to him. There was a small stretch where he had Quinton Post next to him earlier in this game. And that lineup kind of has its own issues. It's two 7-footers on the floor at the same time. So in terms of, because at some point somebody's gonna end up on the perimeter. So that kind of limits their the potential, even though Quinton Post is really good at sliding his feet. I think the most ideal thing that we want to see is Al Horford next to him. Even Draymond next to Porzingis, that's not good enough, right? If Porzingis is out on the perimeter, and he's very bad at like contesting shots, like he's just late, right? His hands do go up, but it's often just too late. The shot has already gone up. So yeah. 3 rebounds in 29 minutes is pretty atrocious with sparse defense. But there are times where he is good, right? He does have wingspan. I think he has a 7'4" wingspan. And so if it's right at the rim, he is capable of bothering shots, right? And then at the same time, he can make an impact on offense. So he's an interesting player. But he's a conditional player. You need primary defenders around him. He cannot be the primary defender. That's the main point. Spurs are a better organization than Warriors. I mean, it's not even close, man. It's not even remotely close. Spurs know how to scout. The Warriors don't. They've gotten better since they got Mike Dunleavy Jr. That's why they've gotten some better draft picks in recent years, but he also created this roster with like 10 guards, right? It's very questionable. Kerr will put the best lineup out in the play-in. We'll see. I don't trust Steve Kerr at all. So that's a big hurdle. We'll see what he does in the play-in. Nate Williams, you can trust him shooting guard, small forward. LJ Cryer is a good shooter, but can't play defense. LJ Cryer he's okay on defense. Like, he's not great, but he's not like, he plays hard. Put it that way. He consistently plays hard, and because he's an elite shooter. And I'm talking about regular season, because come play-in and playoffs. Well, you got Seth Curry there. You don't need LJ Cryer also. You already have a 6'1" Seth Curry. You don't need 6' LJ Cryer on top of that. You choose one or the other. And if you're going to choose one, you're going to choose Seth Curry, right? So that's why I would want Nate Williams signed over LJ Cryer because LJ Cryer is too redundant at the guard position, right? You have Seth Curry, you have Steph Curry, you have Melton who's 6'2", right? You have GP2 who's 6'2". You have Seth Curry who's 6'1". You don't need LJ Cryer on top of that, right? It's too redundant. It's too many guards, and you don't have anybody that can replicate the size, the wingspan, and the POA ability, the combination of those things for out of Nate Williams. That's why you need to sign him. But again, knowing this team, my guess is that they're going to sign LJ Cryer. We'll see about that. But they should sign Nate Williams. They need him more. Kerr let players down all the damn time, man. Imagine if Curry, Horford, and by the way, at this point, I'm taking some questions from you guys. If you have questions, any kind of questions about this team, about what they're doing, what they need, what they have, what they don't have, what players are doing well, what players are viable, what players are not, anything. I'm here to take questions right now. So think about them. If they're good questions, I will address them. There was a lineup of KP, QP, Gee, Seth, and Paz on the floor at one point tonight. Got my hopes up. That's a great lineup. Yeah. You know, you got KP probably should be playing power forward, but you know, when you have the power forward center tandem, one thing that we need to understand about that is that they're always interchanging their roles, right? So you have a power forward who oftentimes needs to play the role of a center, right? And so it's a little different, but I would prefer a bigger lineup over a smaller lineup all day and night. So I like that combination. And then you have Guy Santos at small forward, which is good, right? Now you have all kinds of rebounding with all that size, even though, you know, KP, QP are not great individual rebounders. KP has the length to disrupt things on the floor. You see him like get hands on the ball, right? And Post is a great defender, interior defender. So that's a good tandem right there. And then Guy Santos is kind of just everywhere, right? So that is a very powerful defensive lineup. And then you got an elite shooter in Seth Curry. And then you got Pods at point. So very interesting, very powerful, potentially powerful lineup. It should have had more opportunities, certainly, than a 4-guard lineup. But again, in the second half, Quinton Post was missing. So, but even then, again, you could have just replaced them with Leons, right? You didn't have to do all that crazy stuff. Can't be a spot up on non-ball dominant point guard only is Jamal Murray, or I don't know what that is. Imagine if Curry, Horford, and Butler were healthy. Well, there's no point in imagining Butler, right? Because there's no hope there. But there is hope with Horford and Curry and KP, right? Porzingis is he's starting to get pretty comfortable offensively, at least. And 23 points on 14 shots, 5 of 5 from the three-point line. Super efficient, right? And if he can be that efficient offensively next to Steph Curry, and there's enough defense surrounding Curry and Porzingis with guys like GP2, Horford, Guy Santos, I mean, yeah, think about that lineup. Steph Curry, GP2, Guy Santos, Horford, Porzingis. I mean, that sounds pretty elite to me, you know? So they can really mix and match and do a lot of different things if all their bigs are healthy. Yeah. So I can't help but feel that sense of excitement for if that should happen at some point. You just don't know if Steph Curry's going to be. I think he's been cleared to scrimmage 5-on-5 and all these things, you know, going into next week. So we'll see how it plays out. All you can do is pray for the best. What do you think should be the first person to go off the bench and be a spark two-way game? Again, that depends on what the starting lineup is, but in my world, obviously GP2 would be one of the first guys. In a completely healthy situation, I will want Draymond coming off the bench. GP2 will be coming off the bench. Quinton Post will be coming off the bench. Poz will be coming off the bench. Melton might be starting, right? Something like that. Something like that. There's a lot of defensively capable guys coming off the bench, basically. Who should the Warriors target this offseason? I will not discuss offseason yet. Nobody should trust Steve Kerr. Yeah. I mean, he's gotten better at some things. Offensively, he's allowing guys more freedom. Obviously, with Steph Curry out of the equation, he didn't keep running the same thing. He allowed Santos to ISO, give him the ball, let him create. He allowed more freedom to Pods. He allows a lot of freedom to Kristaps Porzingis in terms of the shots that he's taking. It's not just motion all day and night. They do run, some variations of the pick and roll. And Steve Kerr has been he's been like an offensive police in that regard. He would rather run a Draymond traffic cop offense than an effective, simplified ISO possession, one-on-one creation. I think a lot of that stuff changed once Jimmy Butler came on board. The offense changed a lot. With Jimmy Butler, that's the adjustment that Steve Kerr had to make. And as a matter of fact, Jimmy Butler earlier in the season was very upset because Steve Kerr started to go back to this BS offense where he put Jimmy Butler in the corner and he put Draymond Green in a decision-making spot where it should be Jimmy Butler, right? Jimmy Butler should be playing pick and roll with Steph Curry because he can take a better advantage of open space. You can't leave him wide open. If he's open in the mid-range, he's going to shoot that, right? And he's a much more capable passer than Draymond as well. And then you put him in the corner and you're giving that role to Draymond, somebody who that is not capable of scoring, right? Absolutely ridiculous, absolutely insane. So Jimmy Butler got very upset. He was actually like missing team flights, like he was flying on his own because he was upset, right? There were those moments. What he should have been upset with was the fact that he kept being put at power forward, right? Rather than that, but either way, Jimmy Butler was very upset with Steve Kerr, so nothing surprising. Who should the Warrior Dubs fire Dubs scouting teams? Everyone should trust Steve. God, got a Steve Kerr stan in here. Unbelievable. Is it worth it for them to make a run this year or consolidate their roster for a run next year? I mean, they can do both. At the end of the day, at worst, they're going to be the 10th seed, and they can do no worse. So they'll get their draft pick, whatever that is, and they'll be able to compete for the play-in to get into the playoffs. We'll see. Do you think Kerr will sign another year? Pray that he doesn't. We deserve to see the Warriors play the game of basketball without a handicap being put on this team just about every single game. We deserve better than this. The players deserve better than this. The organization deserves better than this. We deserve to see a maximized version of the Warriors for once in our lives. Right? 21-22 season, at least Mike Brown was there, and he had them playing elite defense. Such elite defense to the point that Draymond Green missed half of that season, and at the end of that season, they were still tied with the Celtics for the best defense in the league. That is all Mike Brown, right? But they don't have that anymore. And maybe things look better without Steve Kerr. If players are being put in position with what's on the roster, they just would have been so much better. That alone, even without elite perimeter defenders, they still would have been elite if they simply had guys in their correct positions. With guys out of position, there's no chance for them to play elite defense, right? You can't rebound at an elite clip with a 4-guard freaking lineup with Draymond at center, can you? You can't get consistent stops with Draymond at the center spot with a 4-guard lineup, can you? You can't do that with Draymond at the center spot, period, with any consistency, can you? right? So you can do these things if you have an elite coach or a coach, bare minimum, that knows his own players' positions, right? Part of the reason why Santos got into rotation and like started playing more of an impactful role for this team this season was in that Clippers game when Steve Kerr got ejected and Terry Stotts took over and he pretty much played Santos that entire quarter and they damn near made a comeback in that game. And so Terry Stotts showed Steve Kerr the value of Santos, and that's where Santos started to get more of a consistent role for this team. Or even just see signs of it. Because before that, he was getting DMP'd. So there's an example of Terry Stotts knowing basketball and understanding that he needed Santos to compete in that game. Whereas Steve Kerr wasn't doing those things, right? See the difference there? Different coach, different results. Same roster, different results. Melton and Pat Spencer have been terrible, especially Pat. What a wasted signing. How viable is Melton with all the guards? Well, Pat Spencer, again, if they would have held out long enough, they could have given that contract to LJ Cryer. And then we wouldn't have had to worry about picking between LJ Cryer and Nate Williams, because now that's what they have to do. Yeah. It is what it is. Pat Spencer is going to play the rest of the season with the Warriors. And my guess is that they're going to let him go. And they're going to, Pat Spencer's time with the Warriors should be over after the season. He's a half-decent player, especially, again, when you put the right combination of players around him where he doesn't have to be relied upon more defensively than he should. He should be hidden as much as possible, and you can do that if you put 4 good defenders around him. You can't do that if you put Pots next to him, right? Now you'll be more vulnerable defensively because you got 2 guys that can get burned in the perimeter, right? So they're going to get picked on, and Pat Spencer's going to get picked on. And so, that's partly Steve Kerr's fault for sure. But there's also times where Pat Spencer, again, plays selective defense. Don't need guys who play selective defense and doesn't show up half the time on defense. Maybe if he was on a different team, and he was getting an opportunity the way his brother Cam Spencer has been getting, with the Grizzlies, right? If he's in those kinds of situations, Pat Spencer can certainly be useful. But I am ultra selective when it comes to what player should or should not be on this team. As long as Steph Curry is playing for this team, I'm going to scout whether this player is like a championship caliber player or not. That's what you have to be if you want to play on this team, right? That is the reason why I couldn't accept certain players being on this, certain young players being on this team, because they're not championship caliber players, right? Even Potts, I wanted him trade. He's improved. He's improved, but is he a championship caliber player? No, he's not. All right? A player who makes the mistakes that he makes is not championship caliber. Just because he's capable, he's a capable player and he's capable of, I don't know what his ceiling is, but let's say he can be a starter for a team. He's showing that right now, right? That does not mean that he's a playoff or a championship caliber player. And those are the types of players that we're looking for. And so Pat Spencer certainly is not it. I'm debating whether even Kristaps Porzingis is viable for this team, even though he's a legitimate scorer, right? And he's like a 1.5 way player because defensively he's only there half the time, right? And players like that, no matter how well they score, to me, are not going to be good enough unless the surrounding conditions can really make up for whatever he's lacking on defense. See what I'm saying here? If a guy like Kristaps Porzingis, I'm questioning whether he's good enough for this team. You think I'm going to think Pat Spencer's going to be good enough for this team? My standards are higher than most people when it comes to, building the right group of players around Steph Curry. That's what I've been doing for the last decade and a half, right? You got David, it all started with like Monte Ellis being next to Steph Curry. Not good enough. Too small. Backcourt is too small. You can't be championship caliber with those two guys in the backcourt. You can't. Even Monte Ellis knew that. All right. And then you got David Lee at power forward. Like David Lee is not a real player. He's a regular season performer who puts up numbers. But you go into the playoffs with David Lee as your power forward, you're going to be out in the first round because he can't play defense. What have I been talking about all this time? How important that defense is at the power forward spot. It's vital. And if you have David Lee as one of your primary defenders, you're going to give up too many easy buckets. He's not a defender. He's a cone. So even though he was 20 and 10, Mr. 20 and 10, two-time All-Star, I knew they had to get that guy out of there. You can't play winning basketball with players like that in rotation and playing a vital role. Especially for Mark Jackson, the guy was like being prioritized on offense over Steph Curry half the time. Right? So this is what I've been doing. I recognize the difference between a viable player to compete at the highest level with and players who are not, even if they're really good scorers. My dad drilled into my mind since I was a kid, if you're going to foul on a layup, do not let them make it. There you go. It's a competitive concept. If you want to be competitive, make things difficult, be physical. If you see that you're not going to be able to stop a guy from getting a layup and you're about to foul him, you better make sure that he doesn't score. Pat Spencer, he just like touches a guy as they go up and he allows an and one. It's very uncompetitive. You're not playing competitive basketball. Where is the dog in you to get a stop at all costs on that play? You give up and one plays all the time. And it's of the touch, a flick, like, yeah, you're flicking. Yeah, you're barely touching them. Of that variety. If you don't have a dog in you, I don't want you on this team. And I don't want you, getting heavy rotational minutes for this team. I just don't. You better be special on offense if you're going to do that, right? LJ Cry has been really off the mark. I think he shot 0 for 4 in the last game. Shot 0 for 6 in this game. He's 0 for 10 from the three-point line now. He was shooting 69% true shooting going into the last game. And now he shot 0 for 10. Yikes. He's going through it right now. Wow. Given the fact that is his only value to this team, you better turn it around quickly. Otherwise, they just may really sign Nate Williams, which is what we want anyway. As a matter of fact, if that's what it's going to take, maybe I want LJ Cryer to miss a whole bunch of shots moving forward so that he'll be out of the rotation and it'll force them to sign Nate Williams. They need him more than Cryer. Posh needs to work on his jumpers this summer. Maybe they should give Nate Williams more run. Should they sign Terry Stotts next year? Kerr's system is built on high IQ plays, but forcing players out of their natural positions. Well, if Steve Kerr walks, then Terry Stotts will be a fantastic coach to take over. He's a really great coach. I think he gets more out of his players than he should. I think that's what happened when he was coaching the Blazers. That team had no business going to the Western Conference Finals. He had a small forward, power forward tandem of Mo Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu. And his center was, the hell was his name? The white guy. He was, that's a guy that we know what he is at this point, right? But he was putting up like 30-point games in the playoffs against the Warriors. Myers Leonard, right? So talk about maximizing what you have, right? And Terry Stotts last year, when they started with the Terry Stotts system, the Warriors were the best team in the NBA. They started the season 12-3 under Terry Stotts' offense. That was stated by Draymond. As soon as Draymond stated that on his podcast, talking about our offense has been amazing, that is Terry Stotts' offense, the very next game, Steve Kerr switched up, changed everything. Put Steph Curry in the corner, Steph Curry's getting 2 shots in a quarter, while Draymond Green is playing traffic cop. And yeah, they were back to playing completely trash offense, and then the Warriors just completely went downhill from there. Before that, Buddy Hield under Terry Stotts looked like one of the best players in the NBA. He's shooting like 50 something percent from the 3-point line in the Terry Stotts system. As soon as he went to the Steve Kerr system, he became trash, and as a matter of fact, a below average 3-point shooter. We saw that this season, didn't we? Buddy Hield became a below average 3-point shooter under Steve Kerr's system. Steve Kerr's basic trash offense, this random offense that he wanted to run where Draymond Green is his primary facilitator, only looked half workable because of Steph Curry. And even then, oftentimes it looked very mediocre, right? So it's when they went away from this BS offense is whenever they do that is when the Warriors play their best brand of basketball, right? So Terry Stotts is not with the system at all. His offensive system is completely different. His system is very simple, and it maximizes the best players on his team. Melton just pressing because he's playing for his contract, yeah. Nate Williams is better than LJ Cryer. What are the people talking about? LJ Cryer is a better shooter. And in some ways, you can say that brings more value. But defense is the name of the game. Nate Williams is a way better defender. And LJ Cryer's shooting can be replicated and probably at a better clip by Seth Curry. Yeah, that's why it's unnecessary to have LJ Cryer on the roster. You have to understand what's already on the roster and how many small guys can be on the roster. You really want more 6'1", 6'2" guys? Not even 6'2". More 6 foot or 6'1" guys on the roster? You shouldn't. Buddy Hield might have been the dumbest player to don a Warriors uniform. Well, I'm glad I don't have to watch Buddy Hield play the game of basketball anymore. That was a nightmare. Utter nightmare. And as you can see, he plays for a real coach. He cannot get into rotation. As Jim, a Niners fan, I don't follow football. All my attention is on the game of basketball. As a matter of fact, only on the Warriors. I don't even, I watch every single team play every season because the Warriors have to play them at least twice every season, right? So I get a glimpse of what players are like. And it's easy for me to scout players based on what they do or don't do, especially on the defensive end. So that's kind of how I scout guys around the league. I also pay attention, statistically, so that I know generally what the patterns are, which players are elite and which players are not, this kind of stuff. So all my time and dedication goes to the game of basketball and specifically to the Warriors and some YouTube guys. I'm very into that one-on-one scene. No football for me. Looking back, I can see that Jimmy was not happy with the way Kerr was coaching. I mean, you can look back, but I'm telling you for a fact that Jimmy Butler was pissed. I have enough sources to know that, and I also know that again, he literally missed the team flight. He flew on his own because he was pissed off. It's just a fact. Again, with Kristaps, we'll see what happens. They keep talking about like enamored and he fits perfectly, blah blah blah. Of course, as usual, this team doesn't pay enough attention to defense. That's what matters the most. Depends on what contract they get him under, right? I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, so I forgot again. I had a point about Kristaps Porzingis, and I just completely lost it. Are you still playing basketball? No, I've been retired for many years now because my meniscus has no, my cartilage has deteriorated. It has thinned. And it's gotten to a point where if this is the cartilage, the middle and the front is missing. So there's pain. Like I can't even walk in certain ways without feeling pain sometimes. So I had to give it up. It was my greatest joy and love, the game of basketball. The reason I have the amount of passion for it as much as I do is because I played it for 3 decades. And when you do something for that long, and I just had incredible love for the competitive spirit of I would miss NBA games all day just to be able to play myself, right? But I know the consequences, right, of having played. And so that's why I don't take things lightly. I know what the players are putting on the line. You see Moses Moody, man. His career has forever been altered, potentially. Any game, every game, these players, they play at the highest level, at the strongest, the biggest, the fastest league in the world, and you don't take that for granted, right? These players are going up against the most elite players in the world, and so you have to make sure if you're managing this team, you got to make sure you're not putting these players in a position of compromisation. And Steve Kerr has been doing that for years and years and years without a care in the world for what all this wear and tear is doing to these players' bodies when they're being put out of position constantly. There's wear and tear there. You become more susceptible to injury, right? You have this wear and tear, and then let's say you suffer like some calf injury, right? And then next thing you know, you have this wear and tear on your calf, and then next thing you know, you suffer a greater injury from that, right? And then you have these like back aches and all these things because you're constantly boxing out somebody 20 pounds heavier than you, and you think that somehow these things don't matter. But a game of basketball is positionless. Like Steve Kerr is the greatest POS I've ever seen in my life. You are gambling with the livelihood of these players. You can't do that. In order to minimize doing that, you have to make sure that you put out the strongest defensive lineups possible, because that's the best way to ensure that your defense isn't compromised and you're forcing other guys to do more than they should by trying to cover more ground because your defense is compromised. That's how players get hurt. All right, I know these things because I played it. I know what it does to the body. Even not playing at that level, anywhere close to that level, I suffer, these like somewhat kind of permanent injuries. I have to live with that for the rest of my life, right? You live with consequences if you play the game of basketball, especially like consistently or like weekly, daily, whatever, right? And so I know that even when playing at the level that I did, you play at the highest level, you gotta know that. It's so irresponsible for Steve Kerr to do the things that he did. It's so frustrating, man. Dan would have loved to see you play at LA Fitness or as a teammate. All I can say is that the game of basketball was my obsession. Before the knee issues, I'll just say that I was different. I wish YouTube existed when I played at my peak, because I would say that I was one of those players who was like, there's no stopping me. You try to contain me, but because I had the handles, I was super lightweight and I was very shifty. I used to run track. I was varsity, borderline varsity, I'll say, track. So I was very fast. I ran cross country. I had limitless cardio. I had incredible timing. I had this natural ability to stop and go. So handles, crossovers, hezzies. I played basketball religiously, so my shot was just I could shoot from anywhere. I could shoot from like 30 feet, and just the way I played, it was like I felt that there was no stopping me. I could go anywhere I want. I could score anywhere I want. But that was all like natural. And once that went away, my knee, I didn't take care of my body. It's a harsh lesson. And I didn't take care of my body. I would go months without playing, and then I would just jump into the gym without working out at all, and just I would get injured. I would get injured all the time, and then eventually my knee started to wear down. My cartilage started to thin, and when your knee goes, you are completely compromised forever. And excuse me, that's what ended up happening to me. I ended up going from being like a really elite guy to somebody who had no shot. My shot was not based on form. My shot was based on my ability to just jump. And so when I couldn't jump, my shot went away. Suddenly I went from being like a Steph Curry type to like a Draymond type. But because I love the game of basketball so much, I still wanted to play no matter what. And then I started to kind of pick up on other things, you know, setting screens and playing for your teammates and these things. I had to become more of a selfless player because I couldn't replicate what I used to do offensively anymore. I became a liability on offense actually because I couldn't shoot properly anymore. It's crazy. In this way I can understand players like Ben Simmons and these players who once were able to do these things and then suddenly they can't. These things happen. But yeah, that's my little history. And you know, my competitive spirit was always just so high. And so even with NBA players, even though I'm nowhere near that level, I can see what players are at what level, right? So if you're not of this like out of this world level, like I wouldn't be interested. And that's why I became interested in Steph Curry because he was out of this world. He's out of this world. LeBron James, like all these guys, they couldn't get my attention. I grew up watching Michael Jordan. I cannot go from Michael Jordan to LeBron James. Michael Jordan was out of this world. He can make any shot from any. His athleticism was out of this world. Two-way basketball, leadership, passion, drive to win. I mean, just everything was there in terms of watchability. And then you watch LeBron James, and it's just like, dude, like what? You can't even shoot. You're a liability in the playoffs because you can't shoot. Teams are game planning to get you to shoot shots. So the Spurs are giving you wide open mid-range shots because you can't make them. You telling me to watch that? Unwatchable. Spurs Cavaliers series, unwatchable. You're telling me to watch that and tell me that that's the GOAT? Excuse you. Cannot fool me with media BS propaganda. I have eyes. I know a special player when I see one. And that guy had to cheat his way into championships, okay? Give me a break. But yeah, you know, I went through just all the experiences while playing the game of basketball myself and my obsession with it. And even then, I had to watch NBA games. I watched it live, and then I rewatched it. You know, I was studying film to see what I was missing, and all. You do that for like almost 20 years. Yeah, you start to pick up on things, and you start to understand what's important. You start to understand what's winning basketball player. You start to understand what players are giving you winning basketball, and you start to understand what players are not giving you winning basketball. That's why I've been able to scout the way I have. That's why since the beginning of this journey, you know, like I said, you know, I was saying step by step. I'm talking about, excuse me. If you don't trade Monte Ellis, Steph Curry will never realize his potential. And at the time, people are like, forget Steph Curry's potential. We want to see Monte Ellis. There's a lot of people in the Warriors fan base that wanted to trade Steph Curry before they traded Monte Ellis. And I'm just like, you're insane. We've already seen peak Monte Ellis and what that looks like. It's a losing basketball. It's inefficient basketball. And there's not enough defense there. Right? Monte Ellis is not an efficient basketball player. You need to understand the value of efficiency. All right? That's going to determine, well, how efficient your team's going to be or not going to be, right? If you're just chucking up a bunch of shots, and you're shooting 75% from the free throw line. You're shooting 33% from the 3-point line, and you're shooting 44% from the field. You're not an efficient basketball player. I just described to you Brandin Podziemski. It's just that Monte Ellis was a better version, right? He's a more elite scorer. But I saw right away, it's just like there's no comparison here. You got to trade Monte Ellis if you want to maximize Steph Curry. So I saw from the jump in his rookie year that you've got to play this guy. You've got to what's his name? Don Nelson showed the blueprint in Steph Curry's rookie year. Steph Curry, he gave the reins to Steph Curry. He gave Steph Curry the ball, and he's like, I'm not playing through you, Monte. I'm playing through Steph Curry because I'm seeing something here. Next thing you know, Steph Curry is putting up, he's matching LeBron James and Dwayne Wade that year in like 30 points and 10 assist games. I think Steph Curry had 5 of those in his rookie year. By the final month of Steph Curry's rookie year, he's averaging 26 points, like 5-6 rebounds, 6-7 assists, 2 steals, like 3 threes, shooting like 47% from the 3-point line. Like that is unheard of at that time. Unheard of, right? I've never seen anything like it. You compare the efficiency to Steve Nash, but Steve Nash didn't score at the level that Steph Curry was scoring. So he was, from the get-go, from the jump in his rookie year, I'm like, oh, this is the future right here. But you got to trade Monte Ellis. You can never free Steph Curry as long as he has to share the backcourt with Monte Ellis and he's being relegated to the corner, right? That's not going to work. And that defense, that small backcourt defense, that's not going to be good enough, right? So I'm saying that, right? And then they finally trade away Monte Ellis and they get Andrew Bogut. And I'm like, let's go. Now we can start seeing some real basketball. Andrew Bogut, one of the best defenders in the league at that center spot, right? I would make the argument that paint defense wise especially against certain sizes, shot blocking, Dwight Howard obviously rolls apart better than Andrew Bogut. Even though Andrew Bogut was an elite shot blocker, Andrew Bogut with his size was able to guard anybody. Dwight Howard had trouble against certain players because at the end of the day, he's 6'10". He's an athletic freak and whatever. But if a guy that is bigger than him puts a body on him, like he'll have trouble with that, right? Whereas Andrew Bogut was a much bigger human being. So yeah, I mean, and then you had David Lee. I'm just like, okay, Monte Ellis is gone. David Lee is next. He must go. Otherwise, the Warriors cannot play winning basketball. And then in Steph Curry's third year, I believe, was it? Is it third year? No, fourth year. Fourth year, they get into the playoffs, and David Lee gets injured against the Nuggets in the first game. And then the Warriors are not supposed to beat that team. Andre Iguodala was on that team at the time against the Nuggets. And the Warriors took care of them in 6 games on the road. The Nuggets, nobody had the Nuggets losing to the Warriors. They were the 3rd seed. They lost David Lee. And then the Warriors were just a completely different team. Steph Curry took over, showed his star potential in that series. And then against the Spurs, the Warriors, if they were healthy enough, they would have beaten the Spurs that year. They would have beaten the Spurs that year if they were healthy enough. Steph Curry ended up injuring his ankle in the second game after scoring like 44 points in the first game against Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, elite defenders on that team. And Steph Curry is going off like, Tim Duncan, forget you. I am launching and getting whatever I want in the paint. Steph Curry was out of this world, right? So just absolutely incredible things that happened that playoffs with David Lee out of the equation. And then the following season, David Lee came back and the Warriors could not play thriving basketball, and so a season wasted. And then Mark Jackson gets fired. Steve Kerr comes on board. David Lee gets injured in the preseason. Draymond takes over at the power 4 spot. Next thing you know, the Warriors start 18-2, and then they're the best team in all of basketball. So that's everything that I have predicted. Get David Lee off this team. Get a real power forward. That ended up being Draymond Green, and the Warriors were the best basketball team in the world. I didn't know what Steph Curry's ceiling was in his rookie year, but I knew that he was going to take over the league if they traded Monte Ellis. See, these things don't always happen, right? The NBA. Half of it is like opportunities, right? And it's like recognition. It's like his own team didn't recognize. You know, what's it? Keith Smart took over in the second season as the coach of the Warriors. Don Nelson retired, and Keith Smart was benching Steph Curry down the stretch of games to play AC Law because he was saying like Steph Curry was not good enough on it. This is what I'm talking about. Your opportunities can be taken away from you if you play for the wrong coach. And this was Steph Curry's career for the first like 3 years. It's like, well, the second year was completely wasted, because they didn't trade away Monte Ellis. It's like, how come I see that Steph Curry is the future of this team right away, and I'm investing like, $20,000 or worth of my own money. I'm investing into him in his rookie year because I believed in him that much. But his own damn franchise didn't move Monte Ellis that year. You should have moved Monte Ellis as soon as you saw what Steph Curry could do, because you knew he couldn't replicate that if Monte Ellis continues to be, the main guy on the team. That is the equivalent of drafting LeBron James, right? And Ricky Davis is on the team, talking about he's the best player on the team, right? And then choosing to keep Ricky Davis on the roster in the second year. No, you have LeBron James. It's time to move on from Ricky Davis. And the Warriors didn't do that until the third year, So this team's been behind, way behind in terms of, me recognizing versus them recognizing, things in real time for a very, very long time. It all started with Steph Curry, right? And it's been the same throughout the last several years as well, right? I'm talking about like they lose Otto Porter Jr. It's like, hey, he played a vital role for your team at that power forward position. You lost that, and now you can't play elite basketball because you're missing that. You're trying to replace that with Anthony Lamb. Anthony Lamb is 6'5". Okay, it's not working, and you're trying to replace it with Jonathan Kuminga, a second-year player who doesn't know how to play basketball. Since his second year, I'm like, get this guy out of here. You need to get a more NBA ready. You can't waste Steph Curry prime years. And they wasted it. Kept Kuminga on the roster instead of trading for OG Anunoby that year. Insane. Kuminga can't be in rotation by the time it gets to the playoffs. And the Warriors are literally playing without a power forward coming off their bench. They got Andrew Wiggins playing power forward against the freaking Lakers. Right? It's just complete and utter incompetence. No scouting ability whatsoever. Bob Myers, complete charlatan. It's just incompetence, man. These are incompetent decisions. If the Warriors made competent decisions, if they simply traded for OG Anunoby that year, because that was on the table, literally the Raptors were like, we'll give you OG Anunoby if you give us some assets and Jonathan Kuminga. And they're like, we're hanging up the phone. We don't want to trade Jonathan Kuminga. You freaking idiots. The Warriors got booted out of the second round in the playoffs that year against the Lakers, playing without a power forward and playing without Andrew Wiggins in the final game. He like cracked a rib because he had to play power forward against LeBron James. You freaking buffoons. If they had OG Anunoby, think about that for a second. Draymond Green was still an elite defender at the time. They still had Kevon Looney's elite defense and elite rebounding. You add OG Anunoby's elite defensive ability next to Andrew Wiggins' elite defensive ability, and they got GP2. Think about that. They would have easily beaten the Lakers because they were able to take the Lakers to 6 even without playing without OG Anunoby at all. Coming completely out of the equation. They played tiny lineups. Still took them to 6 games. Add OG Anunoby. They're beating the Lakers. You didn't maximize Steph Curry's timeline there. If you had OG Anunoby for the remaining years after that, think about how much better they would have been. Think about how much of a better position they would have been in. And they could have traded him for Alex Caruso as well. They could have traded for Pascal Siakam. They could have traded for all these NBA-ready players that are ready to contribute at the highest level, and you refuse to do it for some future plan that never freaking came. And I knew it wasn't going to come. That's why I said trade Jonathan Kuminga since his second year, third year, fourth year, and this year. And they finally traded him away, man. Should have traded away Potts as well. All of this should have happened a long time ago. None of it was done. So yeah, this is, if you can see it from my lens, right? I've been calling stuff way before the Warriors actually did any of this stuff. Right? I'm like, you got to do this for this team to be at the highest level. The same thing with Guy Santos, right? I've been fighting for him for the last 3 years because they've been playing without a freaking power forward. It's like, stop putting guys that don't belong at the power forward position in there. The last 4 years have been wasted because Steve Kerr did not understand the value of a power forward. Right? You put a lineup of Dario Saric and Jonathan Kuminga at power forward and center. F you, Steve Kerr. F you, you POS. You have wasted the last 4 years of Steph Curry's career because you don't understand basic basketball positions. It applies at every freaking level, let alone the highest level at the largest size, at the largest strength, at the strongest and the fastest level in all of basketball. Somebody who played professional basketball doesn't understand this? This guy's a freaking criminal. Yeah, so there you go. The season would have been completely different if Guy Santos was played more and was in rotation like he should have been. Like, all the size should have been in there. You guys remember in the early part of the season, Al Horford was getting DNP. He wasn't playing. He was barely playing. Why? Because Steve Kerr favors Draymond at the center spot, and he doesn't want Al Horford next to him. Think about that for a second. Their best combination at power forward and center this season is Al Horford and Guy freaking Santos. And both of those guys were not getting played for the first third of the season. Whether it's the front office making absolutely disgusting, atrocious decisions, whether it's Steve Kerr making disgusting, atrocious, garbage decisions, I just kind of see it all really, like, it's just right in front of me. I can see it in real time. Whereas, like, it takes Steve Kerr never years to realize what the hell he's doing wrong. And then it takes the front office like 3-4 years later than what I see in real time. James Wiseman, 4 games into his career, I'm like, this guy's a freaking project. They need to trade him right away. There was talks of the Raptors being interested in him for Pascal Siakam. And the Warriors were like, oh no, you cannot give up on this kind of potential. Oh, he speaks Mandarin. He's so intelligent. He's a project on the floor. It doesn't take much to scout a guy who's a project. He has no timing. He doesn't have any idea what anybody's going to do once they get into that paint. So how can you contest anything when you don't know what's coming? There's no defense there. First of all, offensively, the guy openly admitted that he has no idea what's going on out there. This guy is a literal project, playing for the worst possible coach who hates the pick and roll, the only thing that James Wiseman could have been good at least offensively. And they held on to him for 3 freaking years. It's okay to make a mistake in the draft. That happens to everybody. But you can't double down on a mistake. You have to quickly realize you made a mistake and pivot as quickly as possible in the Steph Curry timeline because you're in the Steph Curry timeline. Well, did you do that? No. You held on to James Wiseman for like 2 years too long. And then Joe Lacob was bragging about, oh, the two timeline work, we won a title. James Wiseman didn't play a single freaking minute in the playoffs. If he played, they would not have won. Mother effer, man. Whew. Yeah, so I've been very stressed in the last decade plus. You know, watching them do so many incompetent things. and just wasting Steph Curry's legacy. This is the GOAT. Steph Curry's the GOAT. You wasted the first 3 years because you couldn't realize that he was better than Monte Ellis. Incompetence. Total incompetence. Right? You give up on Steph Curry at the age of 32. Complete incompetence. You see that he led the league in scoring that year, and you still didn't pivot away. You still drafted Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, and you didn't trade them away. Incompetence. Drafted James Wiseman, kept him for 3 years. Incompetence. Lose Mike Brown instead of Steve Kerr. Incompetence. You lost Mike Brown and then Steve Kerr, completely exposed as a complete fraud, charlatan, POS, destructive to players' careers, legacies, costing players money. Santos signs for a 3-year, $15 million contract. Are you serious? See what I'm talking about? I've just been so infinitely frustrated by the incompetence of this organization. The leader, they have no leadership. They used to have leadership in Jerry West. Jerry West was incredible, amazing. Thank God for Jerry West. The championship years were all thanks to Jerry West. They got Andre Iguodala because of Jerry West. They didn't trade away Klay Thompson and Harrison Barnes for Kevin Love because of Jerry West. They didn't trade away Steph Curry because of Jerry West. All of these things happened, by the way. Joe Lacob wanted to trade away Steph Curry instead of Monte Ellis. It is the Bucks who didn't want Steph Curry because of the ankle injury risks, so they took out Monte Ellis instead. Bob Myers wanted to trade away Klay Thompson and Harrison Barnes, like championship pieces. Yeah, Jerry West was like, I'm leaving this team if you do that. Yeah, and then Joe Lacob wanted to screw Jerry West, not pay him enough money, and Jerry West got the heck out of there and went and fixed the Clippers instead. And ever since that, Bob Myers has been completely exposed as a fraud, garbage. He's relying on Draymond Green for draft picks. He picks Jacob Evans because Draymond Green says so. Jacob Evans, not an NBA player. Do you know how many players they missed that in that draft because they picked Jacob Evans? Goodness gracious, man. Anyway, I'm done ranting. That was my little rant. Just so frustrating, man. I'm still here trying to do my best to help this team in the way that I can through this channel. Just trying to see what I provide what I see in real time, and my scouting does not miss. Everything that I do is predicated on my ability to see what players are or what they're not in real time. And I'm able to tell very quickly whether these players are viable or not based on like what the level of missing is. Like, what is the level of your reaction time on defense? How are you Are you seeing things happen before they happen? Or are you seeing it very late as they happen and you're just reacting, right? If you're a reactive defensive player based on what you see in front of you rather than anticipating what this player might do and what that player might do, and that's why you take the action that you do in terms of recovery time, right? You have to be able to recognize that to see whether a player is viable or not. That's why I knew Jonathan Kuminga was not a viable player all these years. That's why I knew that when he came in defensively, he was a project. And that's why I knew that it was going to take him too long to develop for this team, especially under Steve Kerr. And that's why I said trade him year after year after year. And now look at him with the Hawks. Same inconsistent stuff. You know what's going to happen in the playoffs? I'll tell you what's going to happen in the playoffs. The Hawks are going to get into the playoffs, and they're going to try Jonathan Kuminga, and they're going to see that he's going to hurt them because he's not good enough on defense, and then he's probably going to end up getting DNP'd at some point. That's my prediction for what's going to happen. Because I know real basketball, and I know what he lacks. And what he lacks is what you need the most in a playoff setting, in the most serious competition against the most serious teams. I trust that scouting above all else. Okay? If you can't do those things at the forward spot, you're not a player that is worthy of being in rotation for a serious team trying to contend. That cannot be inconsistent. Again, the only way you play a forward or some player that is not good enough on defense is if they are super elite on offense. Okay? And okay, Kuminga showed glimpses of that last season in the playoffs. And that's why he ended up being playable, right? But at the end of the day, it's like if he was a better defender, that would have made a giant difference for the Warriors. I'm not when you talk about defense, right? You're talking about everything. It's not just one-on-one defense. It's team defense, especially if you're at the forward spot, because you have to do multiple things, not just guard one-on-one. You have to be able to guard switches. You have to be able to guard bigger players in transition. You have to play help defense if you're stuck in a power forward role. There's so many different things that entails being a good defender, right? And Jonathan Kuminga is a mediocre perimeter defender. He's not consistent there. He'll get burned by guys all the time. He falls for easy fakes, like all these things. It just wasn't developing fast enough, right? So that's why. And so there's so many like stands and haters and being like, oh, you just hate him for no reason. No, it's based on scouting. My whether I like a player for the Warriors, it all depends on what you look like on defense first and foremost. If you look good on defense, I will even change my mind about you. I hated Quinton Post in his rookie year. Anybody who followed this channel knows that. I didn't want him playing at all in the playoffs. And I was right. He was terrible in the playoffs. Eventually, he got replaced by TJD. Right? So I didn't want him there. And I was right. But then he actually cared. He's like, okay, I played great. I was amazing shooting the ball, but my defense was terrible. Opened my eyes. In the offseason, he worked his tail off, got much stronger. You could see it. Like even tonight, he's guarding Jokic, and Jokic is trying to body him, throwing him shoulders and whatever, and Post is just absorbing all of it, right? I saw it right away early in the season against Zubac when he did that against Zubac, because the Warriors have been getting clowned by Zubac for years. Nobody could guard him. Kevon Looney couldn't guard him. TJD couldn't guard him. Draymond couldn't guard him. He was too big. And Quinton Post is the first guy at that center spot in a long time that's been able to guard him, right? So, and then I'm seeing all these developments from him defensively. He can guard from the perimeter, the 3-point line. He contests every single time. He is keeping up with guards who are driving on him. He's able to use his footwork to stay in front of them. He's able to gap the pick and roll on defense. Absolutely incredible. He was just good everywhere defensively this year. It's just, night and day between last season and this season. That's why I went from, I don't want this guy on the team to, holy crap, this guy has become indispensable for this team. It's not about my pride. It's not about like, oh, I said this one thing about this guy in the past, so I'm just going to stick with that forever. Things change in the NBA. Sometimes players evolve. Sometimes they become better. Sometimes they have this drive to like really play meaningful basketball, right? And when these things happen, you have to acknowledge that, and you have to give them credit for it, and you have to update your update your beliefs if the players show you these things, right? And Quinton Post showed me that. Unfortunately, a guy like Kuminga, he didn't show me that. When you don't show that in the beginning of the season, that shows you that that's the player that he's going to be for the remainder of that season. That's why when you scout a player, for me, when it comes to the Warriors, I can see what they're going to be in the preseason based on what they're doing, what they're not doing, what their reaction times are. You know why Kuminga never gets steals? You see like Will Richard, even Moses Moody sometimes, D'Anthony Melton, Nate Williams. You see these guys like picking guys off, and like knowing what's to come, which is why you're able to anticipate and be able to get these steals, right? Even Guy Santos, right? The reason Kuminga doesn't get that is because he doesn't anticipate. He just reacts to what's next. And he relies on his athleticism to cover for the timing that he missed because he can't anticipate. He doesn't think the game, he just plays the game. In order to be an elite defender, in order to be an elite player, in order to be a playoff caliber player, you have to understand personnel and you have to think the game. You have to anticipate what's to come before it comes for you to be a great defender. For you to be able to pick somebody's dribble off, you have to know what's coming. Right? That's how these steals come from these other players. You don't get that from a guy like Kuminga. This is all scouting, man. It's all scouting. And you can say that my scouting is not perfect. In terms of certain players not working out or whatever, right? I don't think anybody bats 1,000, but I don't think anybody's been accurate as me when it comes to evaluating the value of these players and based on what. I hope that more than anything, those of you guys, tuning in right now live, you get value out of what I'm saying in terms of how you evaluate and scout players. I'm literally giving you the blueprint on how to scout players. That will make you a better analyst. You'll be able to recognize talents or the lack thereof better. Hopefully you understand that defense is the most important thing. When you got to be able to play defense if you want to play for a real team, for your offense to matter. That's how you want to maximize your team in terms of building your team, the overall potential of your team. Obviously, you don't want a whole bunch of guys who are great defensively, but completely inconsistent on defense, right? You got to have a mix and match, and you have to have a balance there. But ideally, you have a guy who has potential on offense, but first and foremost, he's a good defender. Good defense, hustling, all these things, that will get you on the floor because you bring automatic value there. You bring intrinsic value by connecting the defense first and foremost. That's why a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., not much of an offensive player, has immense value for a team like the Clippers. That's why a guy like Chris Dunn has immense value for a team like the Clippers. That's why a guy like Nicholas Batum has immense value because of their ability to defend first and foremost. And then you see what else they can do on offense. Can you provide something on offense? Can you shoot a three? Can you finish in the paint? What can you do? Can you create? Can you initiate? Right? You look for these things after you see whether they can play defense or not. If they can't play defense, then it's not worth a damn, and it's not worth building around them. Okay? Even if it's a really good offensive player, you still see that they're not worth building around. I think Monte Ellis was literally one of those guys. Yeah, so yeah, I hope you take something from that. I hope you find value in what I'm saying here. This is why I have been able to see the value of these players before other people can in the NBA. These scouts and whatever, they say these things about these players and whatever. Even these players have been, bad mouthing about the Warriors because of Kuminga and all these things. Like, yo, you don't even watch them play. You don't even know what Kuminga is capable of or not capable of. And then you're talking about like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like this just because you're a former NBA player, it doesn't mean that you're a great scout. Look at Draymond. Look at Draymond's history in terms of like his draft picks, right? Horrible. Look at Michael Jordan, man, the greatest player of all time. He was a terrible general manager. He drafted Kwame Brown, man. So just because a player tells you something, it doesn't mean that they're giving you elite information. Right? A lot of them don't even understand the value of defense. They really don't, because a lot of them, they were not defenders themselves. DeMarcus Cousins, I really like his evaluation of Steve Kerr. He says a lot of things about him, where it's like, oh, he sees it. He sees that Steve Kerr is the problem, and he like really hates him. You can tell, right? But like with certain evaluations, like with him, like he wasn't a good defender. That's part of the reason why a lot of the teams that he ended up playing for, they had a limitation to what they could achieve because he was a limited defender at a very important position. That's what happens when you're a half-assed defender. Even though you're dominant offensively, and guess what? You were inefficient offensively as well. He tried to make a funny excuse talking about like he would miss shots on purpose and place them in certain places so that he can get it back at a more advantageous position, and that hurt his field goal. Give me a break, man. That's such a cop-out excuse. Your efficiency was not good for a big man. So you're putting up big numbers, but you're inefficient, and that's really important. Efficiency, like I said before, that's what separates Steph Curry from so many of these other guys, right? It's his efficiency that drew my attention immediately. It's super important. So you're inefficient at a position you need to be really efficient at, and then defensively you're not good enough, and then you blame everything but yourself. All right, so listen, man. I'm gonna close this off. I actually went a lot longer than I thought I would. This is the longest I've been. I've talked. Appreciate you guys being here. And again, at the end of the day, I do this to speak the truth. I've been journaling this team, citizen journaling this team, because I just don't see anybody else doing it this way. Um, somebody had to do it, and that ended up being me for me. So that's why I'm here, but also to, a number of different reasons as well, to be able to share what I have. And for those of you who can pick things up and, have some appreciation for the fact that I can share this with you and you can take this with you, that means a lot to me. So I really do. Like, if you disagree with it, if you think I'm just crazy, I'm a crazy charlatan myself, I don't know what I'm talking about, blah blah blah, that's fine. But if you do find value in it, and if you can learn something from this, then then I feel like I achieved something, and that means something to me, right? And it's also the fact that it's emotional, because we are fans of this team. We care about this team, and we give up our time. Time is the most valuable thing in this life, and we give it up for this team to watch what happens with this team, every nuance of it. And so we have a deep appreciation and love for this team, regardless of what's happening. Otherwise, there's no way we'd still be paying attention to all this, even with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler out of the equation, right? So to go through this together and have an understanding of what's going on, right, and kind of go through it together, that camaraderie, in a way it is, and I appreciate that as well. I appreciate your time of being here and going through it with me. So thank you so much. This is a giant rant session and got to learn a little bit more about me. I hope you enjoyed that for what it is. And I'm not encouraged about the upcoming games. Like I said, the Spurs, that's not going to be good. I think with Quinton Post, I would have given them more of a shot to compete, but it's not enough defense. Steve Kerr's going to go to his ridiculous lineups, 4-guard lineups, and they're going to get destroyed. It's kind of what I see coming. The Cavaliers, I think they're missing a body. It might be Jared Allen, I think. So they're a lot of offense. I think they're not good enough defensively, so the Warriors might be able to hang with them some. But I think this was the best game for them to try to win, because Aaron Gordon was missing, and they missed that opportunity for a number of reasons. And there's not many games left remaining on the season. And we know that Steph Curry and Al Horford are going to be out for another week, at least. We know that Quinton Post is probably going to be out for a week at least now. So we're praying at this point that we get to see them for a week before the season ends. All these guys come together and see what they're capable of. And that's what I'm looking for. That's the last thing that we have to look forward to. So I'm not giving up on that. If I'm giving up on that, why would I even watch these games? I wouldn't. So keep praying for it. And they still can peak at the right time. They still can get out of the play-in, and they still can make the playoffs. And I believe that with healthy bodies, with Steph Curry and the defenders behind them, that they can beat any team in a 7-game series. I don't care. I think Steph Curry in a 7-game series is more valuable than SGA, Jokic, Luka, whatever. I believe in Steph Curry above all else with a defense behind him. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, I'll see you in a couple of days. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good night.